It may still be winter, but spring will be here before you know it. So today, we're going to give you the heads up on what you need to do to be ready for spring, so you're not caught on the back foot. And then we're going to create subsequent videos to take you through each stage of what you need to do much nearer the time. Whether you've got an old garden, a new garden, whether you're a new gardener or you've been gardening for years, one important thing to do in the spring is to know what your soil's doing. Because if you know what your soil's doing, you can prep it, you can feed it, you can add whatever you need to make sure it's ideal for all the plants you want to grow. And it's very easy just to get yourself some little soil testing kits, and they'll tell you the pH, they'll tell you the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the potassium levels. They'll give you all that information you need to know so you can get your garden perfect in spring, ready for all those beautiful flowers and plants throughout the rest of the summer into the autumn and beyond. Another thing you might want to think about before spring arrives is getting down a really nice mulch. I'll go into more details about that later on, but mulch is just fantastic for suppressing the weeds, improving the soil, and getting those great results. One other thing you need to do before spring arrives is get all those tools out of the garage and check they're working properly. Your petrol lawnmower, for example, check the spark plug, check the filter, check the oil. Does the oil need changing? Is it already dark and thick and viscous? Does it need refreshing? Make sure to replace any old petrol. Don't try and start the machine with old petrol. And it might even be a chainsaw, for example. Check the blade, check the chain, check it's really sharp. Make sure you've got blade lubricant in there. Just check all these different things. It could even be a line trimmer. Check you've got enough nylon cord in the base of the nylon trimmer so that you know as soon as spring arrives, those tools are primed, they're fresh, they're ready, and you can get on top of that garden before it gets on top of you. Another thing you can do before spring arrives is just to assess your garden, assess the beds and borders. What worked last year? What didn't work last year? What got too big? What got overwhelmed? What do you need to move? All those kind of things, because you can move plants right up until about the end of March and they won't be upset, they won't be disturbed. This shrub here, for example, the name of which I've forgotten, to be honest, I do know it, but I've forgotten it. This one, this got overwhelmed last year by the plants around it. So I'm going to move this. I'm going to move this to a more open space where it's not going to be overwhelmed by all the other perennials growing around it. And over here, for example, I've got this lovely Sephora, but again, it's getting really tall now. So I might need to think about putting that more towards the back of the garden, somewhere where it can get tall and it's not going to obscure everything else in the garden. So just think about all those different things. In this middle area, for example, last year I grew some helichrysum, some paper flowers, but I grew the wrong variety. They got really tall. So I've made a note for myself this year to plant a much smaller variety. I think there's one called Tom Thumb, and that will flower beautifully, but it's not going to overwhelm everything else. So just make notes of all those different things, get yourself all those things written down, and then you know what to do before spring, and you can be ahead of the game and get everything where you want it to be and have the right plant in the right place. This is also a fantastic time of year to think about what sort of fruit and vegetables you might want to grow in the garden. And when it comes to fruit, you can buy fruit bare root. What does that mean? That means this time of year you can buy fruit trees like this. This is a beautiful apple tree, a lovely variety here called Discovery with its gorgeous bright red fruits. And this is a bare root plant. It means the plant has been lifted from the ground during the dormant season, and all you've got at the base there is the root system. It's not been grown in a pot. That looks a little bit alarming, but don't worry about that because this tree is dormant. It doesn't know it's been lifted. It doesn't know it's been moved. All you've got to do is replant it back in the ground to the same height it was previously, and that will grow away in the spring really well. This is a fantastic way of buying fruit trees, much cheaper than pot grown. But not just fruit trees this time of year. You can buy hedging, you can buy plants, shrubs, all sorts of things bare root that will be much cheaper than usual, will transplant very readily and give you fantastic results throughout the rest of the summer. With spring approaching, you might want to think what you want to grow in the garden this year, or the greenhouse, or the vegetable garden. So you might want to grow fruit, you might want to grow vegetables, you might want to grow ornamental flowers. So think about ordering those seeds now rather than later before your favorite ones sell out. It might be I'm going to grow beautiful tomatoes. I've got tomatoes, in fact, two different types of tomatoes. Rocket, I'm going to try and grow some rocket this year. Also Cosmos, beautiful, absolutely fabulous. I've got some platycodon, a bit unusual, a bit different, and also some Californian poppies. So I'm going to grow all these this year. I'm going to start them off in my greenhouse, And don't forget as well, another thing you might want to get yourself is some labels, because it's important once you've sowed those seeds to label them so you know exactly what's what when they start coming up. Important thing to do as well is before you sow your seeds and before you transplant them into bigger pots, make sure the pots are nice and clean. These are a bit grubby, so give them a good wash, get them nice and clean. Before you do that, use a top quality compost as well to sow the seed and transplant the seeds into. And when we think of seeds, we normally think of things in packets like this, don't we? Little tiny dry things that are really, really small. But it's also a good time of year to think about seed potatoes. These are actually whole potatoes, but they're what's known as a seed potato. So get your orders in for those now, because again, your favorites might sell out. Get yourself prepped, get yourself ready, get all those seeds you want and the compost and your planting modules and your pots, get them all in place now so that come the day you're on the front foot and you can get all those plants ready and get those sumptuous vegetables, sumptuous fruit and beautiful flowers flowering all the way through the summer. Your lawn's probably looking really sad this time of year, and it's still a bit too early to do anything with the lawn. It's probably waterlogged, it's probably got weeds, it's probably smothered in moss, it's probably really, really patchy. So think about what you need to do come the spring and what you need to stock up on to be ready to treat it when the weather warms up. Think about getting yourself some fertilizer, for example. These are brilliant. These sort of 4-in-1s. They treat moss, they kill weeds, they green up the lawn, they create a thicker lawn, and they will improve your lawn very, very quickly come the spring. Or you might want to buy some individual treatments like iron sulfate, which is fantastic for treating moss, or grass seed. Look at what sort of lawn you've got at the moment. Yeah, if it's quite a rough lawn, if it's a lawn that's got lots of kids playing on it, you want a grass seed that, you know, it's for sort of family use. But you might have a much finer lawn, a much more ornamental lawn, in which case you need a grass seed that's going to give you that gorgeous, gorgeous sort of perfect sward. So although you can't get on the lawn, as I say, there's things you can think about to get ready for spring. Possibly book in a scarifier or an aerator come the time so you can get on the lawn, rake all the moss out, get lovely holes in the lawn to create that fantastic aeration. Because if you leave it till spring and try and book one then, chances are they're all booked up and you can't get hold of one. So just give your lawn a little bit of thought now, and a little later on in the season we'll show you exactly how to do these things when the weather and the lawn is at its perfect point. Now is a fantastic time of year to stock up on all the things you're going to need in the garden. So for example, manure and compost. Get those stored up now. In fact, sometimes buying a little bit out of season, you can get them cheaper than when you get into the main sort of spring and summer season. Think about feeds. I've got some fabulous chicken manure pellets here as well. Lovely organic feed. Great for feeding all sorts of plants, ornamental, vegetables, fruit, whatever you need to feed. And think about other feeds, liquid feed, tomato feed. Get plenty of that in stock now as well. So once everything starts growing, you've got the stuff you need. And even slug pellets. These are organic slug pellets, so they're kind to the animals, they're kind to the environment, but they're still going to stop those little critters from eating all your plants. And as I say, getting these now, you might save yourself a few pounds, but it's always great and it's have these ready, have these stored up in the garage or the greenhouse, so that as soon as the weather changes, as soon as spring arrives, you've got everything you need and you can get out there, you can start putting the manure down, you can start putting the compost down, you can start feeding, you can start treating the pests, and you can get right on top of things right from day one. Paths, patios, garden ornaments, they're all filthy this time of year, aren't they? It's been wet, it's been dark, it's been gloomy, they're covered in algae, they're covered in soil, they're covered in splashes. So think about getting yourself a pressure washer or hiring a pressure washer this spring. Buy yourself one now, familiarize yourself with it, or book one in with a hire company just to make sure you've got it when you need it, and you can get all those surfaces, garden ornaments looking pristine, clean and ready for spring and summer. So I think I've got all my list ticked off, ready for spring. I'm going to be on the front foot. It'll be really, really fantastic to hear your tips in the comments, and please keep watching for future videos on how to deal with all the things we've mentioned today.